in my life, I met Bill in 1962. When I was a kid in Baltimore, I was with the Baltimore Bullets, and an old scout named Freddie Esselman, who was one of the first guys Bill hired when he took the White Sox in '49, had told Bill that I was coming to Baltimore, and I was at a luncheon one day, and Bill walked up to me and said hello, and he said, "How'd you like to come down to Easton?" He was living, he and Mary Frances and the kids were living in Easton, Maryland. And I come down and spend a weekend. I was talking to God. And I was talking to a guy who I revered and idolized, and he's talking to me, and I'm a normal human being. Well, that following weekend, I went down to Easton. And I spent a lot of weekends down there after that. Then later on, I got the opportunity to work for Bill. There's a place called Showers Pub. I don't know if a lot of you know it or not, but it's on the west side. And I was working for it on the south side. And then I was working in two sports for the Los Angeles Lakers and the Seattle Mariners. And Bill said, "I know you're not happy. I can tell. I can look at you, and you're not." And I said, "Well, one thing or another." And he said, "Come on, meet me at Showers Pub, and we're going to talk." I picked him up at the ballpark at noon. 4 o'clock the next morning, we walked out of Showers Pub. And we had an agreement between the two of us written on a tablecloth. I've still got that tablecloth. I remember that night like it was yesterday. And then I spent a long time working for him, and spent time with him after he left the White Sox. Roland and I would go probably once a week. Roland would go once a week and meet him for lunch. And there was a little restaurant down on the south side, and they'd sit and talk. And I'd do the same thing whenever I was in town. I was working for Jerry Krause and for Roland. What Bill meant in my life is real simple. I never met a better human being. He talked in that thing about his father was the kindest, nicest man he ever met. Bill was the kindest, nicest man I ever met. There's not a day that goes by in my life that I don't think about. There's not a day that something doesn't happen. I think, what would Bill do? How would he do this? Tonight, one of the things I thought about was I wasn't going to wear a tie. Because Bill never wore one. And I've been stopped going into restaurants with him. There's a place in New York, a very famous place, and Bill walked in, I was right behind him, and Bill walked in, and I didn't have a tie either, and the guy looked at me and said, "Hey, you need a tie." I said, "Well, I'm with him, and he not got a tie. He doesn't have one. Then you have a, you need one." And he handed me a tie. It was a store clerk. And it was owned by a fellow who had a son who was a left-hand pitcher. It was another story that I caught. But Bill was special in so many ways. One thing I think, we've got a number of women in this group, and I want to say something about a lady that is very special to me. Mary Frances Veeck was as good a human being as I've ever known. That was the best love affair I've ever seen in my life. That was electric. Those people looked at one another, and you could see the love between the two of them. It'd be 4 in the morning, and she'd come in sometimes at down in Easton or wherever we were, and "Come on, Bill," and he'd just look at her, and she'd look at him, and I thought, boy, if that ever happens to me, wow. It was just the darndest love affair you've ever seen. And she told me something once that I never forgot. Talk about it now for a second. Bill was negotiating with some people. We were down in Easton, and Bill was negotiating with some people to either take the horse track in Boston, and that meant security for a family for the rest of their lives. The 9 kids would have security. Or he was going to buy the Washington Baseball Club. Well, I knew that if he bought the ball club, I was going with him. And I wanted to go with him real bad. And I asked Mary Frances, I said, "Mary Frances, what do you want him to do?" We were in the back porch. She looked at me and she said, "Jerry, when we got married," she said, "we made an agreement." She said, "I wore the panties and he wore the pants. And whatever he wants to do is fine with me." Well, he took the horse track, and it changed a little bit. When I took the Bulls job, Bill was mad at me, very mad. I've never heard him cuss, but he came close. He was mad because he thought I'd made a mistake. Well, unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to see what would happen. And to this day, I wish he had. But from the standpoint of a special human being, from the standpoint of a man who taught me a tremendous amount about so many things, the best time was midnight to 5 in the morning. That's the best time. Because that's when you really got to talking. And that's when the baseball talk happened. And that's when the conversations got deep into the game. And Roland had a great line. I'm pinch hitting here for Roland, but Roland had a great line. We got on an elevator one night. And some lady was on the elevator and she looked at Roland and she said, "Hey, you're Roland Neiman." And she said, "You work for Veeck, don't you?" And Roland said, "Yes." She said, "I know you, Jerry Krause. You work for Veeck too." And, she said, "Well, does he work you long hours? Is he tough to work for?" And Roland said, "No, ma'am, 9 to 5. And she said, "Lady, well, that's great." And Roland went, 9 in the morning to 5 in the morning.
Sod,
It was true.
and there's a man who knows. You experienced that. Now, Sod, you worked for Bill and you wore a uniform. You played for Bill Veeck.